Today we have with us a Father Christopher Trummer, and it's his birthday, so we all want to wish him a happy birthday. But he wrote an article in the National Catholic Register, A Catholic Response to the Immigration and Deportation Debate. Welcome, Father. How are you today on your birthday?
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you both, guys. Good morning.
This article, I said this a little bit ago on this show. I must admit there are times that this debate just overwhelms me. It's like, you hear both sides talking, and it's like, I just can't take it anymore. And so I tune out. So I loved reading this article. So can you kind of take us through, because you talk about these three pillars of church teaching that we're to use as we make these prudential decisions. So can you give us an insight into those and kind of tell us how they apply?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. So by way of introduction, I shared your frustration and just kind of the confusion. I think, from my perspective, as Catholics, maybe especially in our country, we've been dealing with some truly intense moral issues where there really has been a black and white.
Yes.
There's issues like abortion, euthanasia, assisted suicide, and we're used to, I think, hunkering down and arguing from that stance of like, no, this is the church teaching. This is very clear. And when we get into issues like immigration, there isn't quite as many there's some black and white principles, but it's not as if one group by and large is just taking basically the right side and another group is completely wrong or something. So
exactly,
it really is an issue of prudential judgment, and prudential judgment means that Catholics, people of good faith, goodwill, need to look at the situation on the ground and need to discern what policy or policies will best uphold these principles. So, yeah, the first one, and there's other principles that are involved, but these are just kind of three big ones that I think lay it out. So, first one I talked about was the dignity of the human person. So, the dignity of the human person means that everybody is made in the image and likeness of God, and people have, with that, the right to life, which means that they have the right to pursue what they need to live for themselves and for their family. That obviously doesn't change depending on where somebody lives. So we don't say that we only defend the right to life of people who are in our own country. Mm-hmm. And from that first right of the dignity of the human person flows the right to migrate. So in church documents, it's important to point out that when the church speaks about a right to migrate, it's assumed that the immigration is happening legally.
Right.
And obviously, we have a lot of immigration that's not happening legally. That now, if somebody immigrates illegally, doesn't mean that they're forfeiting their human dignity. So even if when we move on to talk about deportation or other policies of immigration enforcement, of course, even if somebody is subject to those penalties, their dignity needs to be upheld. I do lay out, this is something that I got some feedback on from people, more critical feedback, frankly, but there's a section under the legal versus illegal immigration part, and I gave a few criteria where somebody could be morally justified in entering the country illegally, even though they would not be legally justified. Obviously, you can't be legally justified in breaking the law. I think if you actually look at the criteria that I listed, it's pretty clear that doesn't maybe apply to a lot of people. Right. My point here was that it's worth making the distinction between somebody's moral culpability, like how responsible are they for this decision given their extreme circumstances, versus the legal justification. So to be clear, I don't think most people who enter the country illegally are morally justified in breaking the law and entering the country illegally. In case that's not clear. Yeah. And finally, just the big picture principles. Obviously the church affirms the right and the duty of nations to regulate immigration and to maintain borders. So I joke that John Lennon's song, Imagine There's No Countries.
Oh yeah.
That's not the church's church's dream, is to eliminate borders and countries. And I don't know. I think political rhetoric kind of tries to force us to take one side or the other.
Yes.
A lot of our politics is just oppositional. So whatever the party that I don't supports, therefore I'm against it. That kind of thing. So
yeah.
it's not as flashy or as eye-catching, or it doesn't make for as good of talking points to speak in very nuanced ways about these different principles. But that's really what we have to do if we want to be faithful, I think, to God's commandments, to the church's teaching in a very messy situation.
So how do we, Father, in the sense of what is the church's role in actual immigration policy? I mean, should we be getting involved in the policy part of it, or should we just be responding using the principles to kind of review policies? I mean, what's our role here? I think.
Yeah, I think the church always has the kind of what we would call like the prophetic role of speaking the truth to the leadership, to civil society. I think, broadly speaking, Catholics should be very involved, just as we have. I mean, actually, if you look at our political landscape, we have many Catholics in the Supreme Court,
sure.
in Congress, in the executive branch. Unfortunately, many Catholics are not very faithful to their Catholic identity or to church teaching. But I think it's great for Catholics to be involved in politics, and they should be. And we should not by just obviously someone's not going to go into Congress or Supreme Court and say, well, the church teaches this, so it's
right.
We have to reason things from natural law, from reason, and make arguments that are grounded in human reason. But I think Catholics should be involved in that sense. I think maybe because of some people use the term like hyperpapalism, like there's been this extreme attention to every little interview and every little comment the Pope makes or bishops make, and everybody kind of like says something, and then everyone has to sound off about it. I think the church has, like, you talk about thinking with the mind of the church. I think the church has a more consistent voice on this issue and on other issues. So if we actually want to know what the church teaches on immigration or the death penalty or any of these issues, we can actually read what the church has written. Yeah. And I think we can form our mind that way. And we don't, I don't want people to feel like maybe their bishop or a bishop in another diocese made a comment, and so now, well, if I'm against what he said, then I'm not with the church. And I think the church's position and the church's teaching is kind of deeper than that. So I mentioned in the article that it's not really the role of bishops to like elaborate some detailed policy. The bishops have every right to speak, and it's not my job to tell them what they can or can't say. But I mean, that's the church's vision for how the role of the laity is that really it's the lay people who infuse society with those values and who make those prudential judgments. The bishops assist them in that, and they teach us, they equip us, but they don't replace the laity. Yeah.
Oh, Father, I could talk to you forever about this article. There are so many wonderful things in here, and I really appreciate you taking time this morning on your birthday to be with us. So have a good week ahead.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great to be with you.
Bye-bye.